Hi everyone, I'm Dr. Christina Jones, and today we're going to be making balloon-powered cars. It's funny, a lot of times when I'm first interacting with students or maybe I meet a new colleague at work, one of the questions I ask when getting to know them is, what's your favorite sport? And most of the times the things that come up are, basketball, baseball, football, soccer, swimming, maybe track and field. But one thing that I rarely hear is race car driving or, car racing, right? So, when we think about NASCAR, and that indeed is a sport, NASCAR is definitely a sport, and it's a sport that's been in the news more recently than typical for NASCAR, I would say. And a lot of that has to do with one driver known as Bubba Wallace. He's the first black NASCAR driver in almost 60 years to actually excel within the upper echelons in the premier division of the sport. And so, I'll come back and I'll ask that question, oh, well, what about race car driving or NASCAR, something like that? And, people will typically pause. And then they'll say, oh, I didn't really think about that. But NASCAR, race car driving, it's definitely a sport. It's a sport that I would say is quite unique, right? Because you can have multiple skill sets and still be a part of a race car team. You can be the driver of the car, you can be the mechanic working with the crew pit, and still be a part of that team. So it's a very unique sport in that way. And so as I already said, today we're going to be making balloon-powered cars, and we'll be learning the science that goes along with driving, with race cars, so that you can kind of just understand how race car driving is indeed a sport, but more importantly, how the science around us and science principles are actually applied to racing. And one of those, we've talked about it within our different activities, was that, Sir Isaac Newton has 3 laws of motion. An important one for driving, and what we're going to be doing today, is that 3rd law of motion, which is for every action, there's an equal but opposite reaction, right? And so what that means is, as you're driving, you're accelerating with your gas pedal, and that's actually, that force is moving the car in that forward direction. But what you don't see is this force that's known as friction, right? And that friction is caused between the car wheels and the ground. And that friction is going against the force of you accelerating and putting a car in that forward direction. When you take your foot off the gas, well, then there's still that force of friction. And because it's acting in the opposite direction, that friction is going to ultimately slow the car down. And so again, that's that 3rd law of motion, Sir Isaac Newton's 3rd law of motion. Another thing that we experience when we're actually driving vehicles or racing cars is energy conversion, right? And so there's different forms of energy. There's potential energy, which is known as stored energy. There's kinetic energy, which is energy in motion. So as I'm moving my hands right now, that's kinetic energy. And so one example that's used a lot when we're thinking of cars and driving is just parking a car. So if there is this really, really tall or just steep hill, and let's say we park a car on top of it, at the top of the incline or just at the top of the hill, as it's sitting there parked, it has potential energy. And again, that's that stored energy. But a lot of times you might see this on a cartoon or in a movie, the car just starts rolling, right? And that's because of that incline that it's on, or, it's at the top of the hill, and at a certain point it's just like, yeah, I can't stay here anymore. And so that potential energy that it had stored while it was parked, it's actually being converted in that kinetic energy. No one is actually accelerating the car or anything like that. It's just that energy is being converted, and that's causing it to start moving down an incline or down a hill in a forward motion. And so, again, we'll see those principles in action as we build our balloon-powered cars. Today we're going to be using essentially engineering design to build the car. And another important aspect of our cars is that we're going to use a simple machine to actually help them move, all right? And a simple machine is just something that's made of a few moving parts. Sometimes it has no moving parts, but what it's doing is helping an object move across a space. And so today, as I've said a lot of times, we're going to have this car that's powered by a balloon, but we're also going to have this simple machine to help us move the car as well. And our simple machine is going to be a Welding Axel, and so we'll make that to go with our cars. They'll be powered by the balloon, and hopefully we can race, we can see how far they go, and again just talk more about those principles, that those science principles that are happening when cars are in motion or when NASCAR drivers are racing. And so with that, we can go ahead and go in the lab and get started. So I'll see you in the lab. All right, so now we're in the lab. We're almost ready to go, but of course the first thing we want to do is actually go over the supplies and the materials we're going to need to make our balloon powered cars. And so one of the most important things is we need an empty water bottle. It doesn't have to be this size, it can be bigger, it likely wouldn't be smaller, but yeah, you want an empty water bottle, and you can take the label off because it's also not needed. It may get into the way, but this is going to be the body of our car, so we definitely need the water bottle. You're going to need a balloon. Again, it's a balloon powered car. We're going to need some straws, as well as some bottle caps and skewers, wooden skewers, and those are going to help to make our axles, the Welding axles that I mentioned earlier. We're going to need tape. Tape is always handy. That's one of those things that it's great to just kind of keep and have around for science demos and experiments. We're going to need a rubber band, and then also a pair of scissors. And I want to say you may need your parents' or guardians' help when we're working with the scissors later, so just keep that in mind as we move through our experiment today. And so with that, we can actually get started. I'm pretty excited about this. I love building things and doing things with my hands. So our first step, what we want to do is actually, you want to take 2 straws. So I don't think I said how many you actually need. I have quite a few here. You're gonna need 3. It's good to have a few more, just in case something happens. I'm gonna do blue. I'm gonna be a little color coordinated. And so what you want to do is actually just kind of take your balloon. We want to cut our straws so that they are just a little bit longer than the width of the water bottle. Right, so you can see right now I'm just putting my straw against the water bottle so that I can see how long it is. And you want the flexible part, if you can cut that off while you're actually cutting the straw, that'd be a really great idea because we don't want that part to be connected to our straw. So again, you just want to make sure that you cut your straw. We're going to cut 1 straw right now. You want it to be a little bit longer than the width of the water bottle. And so I just have it up against the water bottle so that I can cut the straw. And I'll just cut it here. All right, and again, when I cut it, I made sure that the flexible part came off. And so then what you can do next for that second straw is actually just hold it against your first and cut it so that it's the same length. And so we want to make sure they're the same length because this is going to actually provide our car support. And more specifically, it's going to provide support for that simple machine that I mentioned previously, which is our Welding Axel. All right, so I have 2 straws. They're about the same length. They are wider or longer than the width of the bottle. And so our next step is to actually take these straws to our empty bottles, which again is, the body of our car. So one thing that could be good is to just tear off a few pieces of tape. You could, depending on the surface you're working on, just kind of put them on that surface. I'm just gonna put them along my fingers for now. We'll see if this presents problems for me later. It likely will, so I'm just gonna work with 2 right now. And so we want to use about 3 pieces of tape. And so what we're going to do is just kind of, again, the straw is going to be taped so that it's longer than the width of the bottle. And we're going to actually place the tape so that it goes in the direction of the bottle. So I was thinking I needed 3 pieces of tape, but I may only need 2. And so you just judge it. You want to make sure that the straw is secured. You also want to make sure that it's parallel. You don't want it to be crooked, you want it to be straight, rather. Okay, so I use 2 pieces of tape. It looks secure. And we're going to do the same thing with our second straw. So I placed the first one near the front of the bottle. And so I'm going to place that second one, and you should too, near the back. We're going to call it the back of the bottle. And you want to make sure as you're taping that the straws are centered along the bottle. All right. So you want them to be centered, and you want to make sure that they are lined up together as well. And so what I mean by that is that, you don't want one straw too far to the front of me, or too far to the back. You want to make sure that you have like the same amount of straw on each side of the bottle. All right, so now that I have them taped on, I'm actually going to go ahead and just put a 3rd piece of tape on here, just to make sure the straws are secured. All right, and so about now, you should have both of your straws, again, wider than the width of the bottle or longer than the width of the bottle, taped and secured to the bottle. One at the front, one at the back, and this will actually be the bottom of our car. So I'm just going to flip it around so you can see. Okay. And so I'm just going to put the straws aside for now. Remember, we need 3, so we will need 1 more later, but I'm just going to put it there for now. All right, so we have the body of our car. We have what's going to support that simple machine that we have to make. And right now, that's what we're going to do. We're going to make our simple machine. So the Welding Axel, which is going to help move our car. And so what you want to do is grab 2 of your wooden skewers. And we want to actually cut the wooden skewers if they need to be cut, so that they're not much longer than the straws. So you want there to be some extra space, maybe 2 centimeters or such longer than the straw on each side. And so for my wooden skewers, I don't need to actually cut them. So depending on the size of yours, if you have the long wooden skewers, so I'm thinking of like the wooden skewers that you use for a kebab or something similar, those would definitely need to be cut. But mine are kind of small and they're fine as is. Again, as you're using your scissors, please ask your parent or guardian's help if needed. So since both of the skewers are about the size that I need, I don't need to cut them. The next thing then will be to work with our wheels. So you should have 4 bottle caps. Each bottle cap would be a wheel, and those bottle caps may already be pre-cut. Great if they are. Mine are pre-cut. But if they're not pre-cut, what you want to do is actually grab your scissors, and this step you may need some adult help for. And you're going to have to actually make holes in your bottle caps if they're not already pre-cut. And so you can do that by just, again, being careful, grabbing your scissors, and then right at the center, you just want to take one of the sharp ends of the scissors, and just kind of rock it back and forth. You don't need to put much force. If you use too much force, it may shock you. It'll go straight through. The hole might be a little too big. So you just want to turn it back and forth. Again, the sharp end. And just put it in the center. And as I can see, I already have a little hole forming. I could see the plastic just kind of being carved out. And so I'm just going to rock it. So you just want to rock it gently. Again, not too much force, because when you're almost done breaking through the plastic, if it's too much force, you could possibly hurt yourself. And we definitely don't want that to happen. So I'm just rocking. I think we're getting there. I was thinking earlier, this is usually a slow step for me. And it's because I want to be careful. I am prone to accidents and injuries. Okay, so I do see it coming through. And so again, we want to make sure that all 4 of our bottle caps have the holes in the center. You don't want them to be too big. The skewers are actually going to go through these holes. Now look at that. So I finally have the hole in this one. And so again, if your bottle caps aren't pre-cut, there's no pre-cut hole in the center. You just want to gently use the sharp end of a pair of scissors, and just rock it back and forth, kind of turn it back and forth, and it will get through the plastic and you'll have your hole. All right, so I'm gonna put the scissors to the side for now. So once you have holes in the center of the bottle caps, these are our wheels, what you want to do is grab one of your skewers and actually stick it through that hole in the center of the bottle cap. And so it should fit snugly. You'll just kind of put the skewer through it. And what we will do is then you're going to put your skewer through the straw. And so right now what we have is an axle with 1 wheel. And then once you get your skewer through the straw, you're gonna grab another bottle cap so that you can put that second wheel on the wooden skewer. And so be careful, you don't wanna, I guess, hit yourself with the pointy end of that skewer. No. And so what I'm doing now is just making sure that the wheels are on my axle, and I'm also attempting to make sure that I have the same amount or same kind of length of my axle or my wooden skewer left out on each side. So if you notice, I've been really intentional about trying to make sure that each side, if you will, of my car or bottle cap is equal. Okay, so that's the first Welding Axel done. And so we're just going to do the same thing again so that we can get the second one at the back of our bottles. So I'm going to go with yellow wheels this time, and I'm going to do the same thing again. Holes have already been pre-cut. I'm going to start from the outside part, the exterior of the wheel, and then stick the skewer in that way, and just gently push it through. You don't want to poke yourself. And then I'm going to stick it through the straw. The skewer, I'm going to stick through the straw that I taped to the back of the bottle. And now I'm going to stick my last wheel. And this wheel, notice that, it's the interior of it that's facing the bottle. And so I'm just going to stick the skewer. I'm going to push it through that part. And so what's happening right now is that I didn't have enough of the actual skewer out on this side of the bottle. So when I just tried to put the wheel on, it was knocking up against the straw and enough of, there we go. But it wasn't secure yet. Okay. Let's see, here we go. There we go. All right, let's see. So once you have all the wheels on, you just want to make sure, see if your car can actually move. And I'm saying that it is moving back and forth. So I think my welding axles are okay. Our next step is going to be to poke a hole at the front of the bottle. And so again, you want to be careful using the scissors. Again, we want it to be the hole to be at the front, not the back. And so we're just going to kind of make a little slit. And actually, I still have the cap on my bottle. I'm going to take that off, take yours off too if it's still on there. You won't need it. And so I'm just trying to hold the bottle so it's sturdy. And then I'm just going to, kind of how I did with the bottle cap when I was showing you how to poke the hole in it. There we go. Just the same thing. You're just going to kind of turn those scissors slightly. And then they should go through. All right. And I'm just checking again because I always want to check to make sure it's rolling with no issues. We're still good. Okay, so I'm just going to put my nice car to the side. And what we need now is that third straw that you have and your balloon. I'm going to go with blue, sticking with my theme. And then you want to grab a rubber band too. And so what we're going to do is stick that short end of the straw, so this flexible part, you're going to actually stick the balloon over it, or kind of bring the neck of that balloon right up to the bendy part. And then we're going to use the straw to secure the balloon. We're going to use the rubber band to secure the balloon to the straw. And so you're just going to take your rubber band and wrap it around the neck of the balloon a few times. I'm going to go over the top of the straw. Eventually, I'm just going to have to go over where the balloon is. As the rubber band, I keep mixing my words up, as the rubber band gets shorter, it's going to be easier to just go like this. And so you don't want to make it too tight, but it needs to be tight enough to where air doesn't leak too much when you blow the balloon up. So I went around, I think that was about 4 or 5 times with my rubber band to secure the balloon to the straw, and I'm just about to blow in it. You want to blow to make sure it works. And so I have my thumb over the other end of the straw. And for the most part, the balloon is holding the air. So I think that it's fine. I'm just gonna blow again. To test it, and it's still holding pretty much, so we're okay. So I know I don't need to tighten it anymore. And so the reason why you don't want to tighten it too much, because it can prevent that air from coming out. Again, this is a balloon powered car, so we're going to need air to power our air in the balloon to actually power our car. And so once you've secured that balloon to the straw, that slit that you just created at the front of your car, you're going to stick your straw through that and then bring the straw out of the bottle opening. So what you can see here is that I just, again, put that straw through the slit at the top, and now it's here, so I can actually blow the balloon up while it's on top of the car. All right, so at this point, your cars should be done. So again, we use those engineering design principles to actually build a car. We have our simple machines, the Welding Axles, that's going to help move the car from point A to point B. And we're going to blow our balloons up, right? And so when we blow our balloons up, that air that's stored in that balloon, that's our potential energy, right? And so we're going to have potential energy stored in the balloon, stored in the rubber of this balloon. And when we let that air out, the air is going to essentially cause motion. It's going to make our cars move, and that's essentially that energy being turned from potential energy or being converted from potential energy to kinetic energy, and that's going to get our cars moving. So while you have your balloon like that, one of the things you can do just to make sure it's working is, again, blow it up. Use your thumb or another finger to stop. Use it as a stopper at the end of the straw. To make sure the air is not leaking out. It's actually a little difficult for me to blow this balloon up. And yeah. And then we can get ready to race them. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to have Dr. J join me. She's already made a balloon, and we will race our balloons to see we're going to race our balloon-powered cars to see whose car goes the farthest. All right, and so we're going to switch gears. Dr. J is going to join, and we'll race cars. All right, so I have Dr. J with me. We are in competition stance and mode, and she is a competitor.
Let's go!
All right, so our cars are ready. I have the blue, she has the pink. No, that was not planned. All right, so we're gonna blow them up. We're gonna stopper the straw with our fingers, and then we'll do a countdown.
Yep.
All right.
Okay.
I'm struggling. But I'm not losing.
Hold on, pull over.
My car have all the fuel.
Go big or go home. All right,
All right.
lined up. We're lined up. All right.
Okay.
Let me make sure I don't fall off the table now. Hold up. All right.
Okay. So we're gonna do a
Three.
count of
Okay.
three.
So on three. So 1, 2, 3. Then go.
Yes.
Okay. All right. 1,
1,
2, 3.
Go.
Oh no!
The little engine that
We gotta run that back. Yes. That was the
That's mine
tester.
too.
I got you.
All right. So if you don't know, I won that round.
That was the test round, so we ain't gonna call that a win. We're gonna say that the test run was in Dr. Jones's favor.
Sure, I won.
All right.
Okay.
All right.
Round 2. Winner takes all.
Oh, just like that. Just we're feeling that confident. Okay. All right.
Oh, it's so difficult to blow up my balloon. So again, if you have problems blowing your balloon up, it could be that the rubber band's too tight.
I'm gonna adjust. How do I want to adjust this time? I think I'm going to bring my balloon this away this time. Okay, maybe not. We're gonna see. Okay.
So you hear Dr. J talking about, moving her balloon around. And so, that goes with that Newton's third law of motion that we discussed about, every force having, or every action having an opposite but equal reaction, right? So we know that the force from the air coming out of the balloon is actually what's pushing our balloons forward. So she's wondering, if I change the direction of my balloon, well then that should kind of change the direction of the force and the way that balloon is traveling. Okay, I had an issue. My balloon came off the straw. I am the driver and the pit crew. And we are back in business. Oh my. Oof. Okay.
You want me to let somebody out so it's fair?
That would be nice.
Okay,
But I'm
I got you.
I'm gonna blow a little bit.
Teamwork makes a dream.
Blow this all again.
All right.
All right. We're gonna count to 3 again.
Yep. All right, I'm gonna move it a little closer just in case, we'll repeat. All right. 1, 2, 3, go. Oh! We'll take off!
Okay, you won out in fair and square. I will say I didn't have as much fuel this round.
There was some trouble.
Yeah, there was some trouble. I got it together, but I didn't have as much fuel as the first time. That may have been it.
But that was pretty fun.
It was fun. It's always fun competing with Dr. J, natural competitor. And I'll get back in the lab so that we can close out. But again, I hope you're having fun racing yours. You do as many rounds as you need to. And just enjoy the balloon power car that you created. Okay, so we just finished racing. That was a ton of fun. I hope that you had a ton of fun racing your cars. There's different things you can change and see how it impacts, whether or not your car moves faster or slower, how much air you put into the balloon is going to impact it. Perhaps you want to space out your Welding Axles a little bit more and see how that impacts the way your car moves. Another thing that would be interesting, so right now, and you notice when we actually race the cars, this was the front end and this was our back end. But if this slit where the balloon is coming through the bottle cap, if we move that towards what's now the front of our car, how does that impact the movement of the car as well? So there's many different extension activities you can also do to just understand how it will impact, the motion of your car. So this was great. I hope that, you remembered as you were racing your cars, again, that we blew our balloons up, that air that was stored there as potential energy, it was converted into kinetic energy to help our cars move forward. And then the other key thing to remember is that Newton's third law, right, where for every action there's an equal and opposite reaction. And so, we blew our balloons up, and as that air was coming out of the balloons, right, it's coming out of this back end or kind of like a tailpipe, it was propelling the car forward. So again, that was the air's coming out. That equal and opposite reaction is to then propel our car forward and also create that motion. So we had Newton's third law that was happening in real time, as well as that conversion between from potential energy to kinetic energy. Hope you had fun. Hope you learned a lot.